I appreciate the show, right? I enjoy it, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, no,
We're skeptical that anybody enjoys the show, Ali.
This is the AT Banter Podcast, a balanced and entertaining look at assistive technology, accessibility, and its importance in people's lives. Join Rob Minot, Ryan Fleury, and Steve Barclay as they banter with people around the world about anything and everything regarding assistive technology and the disability community. Now, on with the show.
Hey, and welcome to yet another episode of AT Banter.
Banter.
I am Rob Minot with a cold, and joining me in the guitar dungeon, Mr. Ryan Fleury.
G'day.
And there is no Steve Barclay because Mr. Steve Barclay is down with a stomach bug. So, stepping into his big shoes.
Clown shoes.
We have Mr. Ali Moussa, who is, Ryan, who is Ali?
Ali is our number one fan of the show. We get more email from Ali. We appreciate him joining today. He gives us great feedback on how we can improve the show. And Ali, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks, Ryan. I am the co-facilitator of the CNIB Western Ontario West Region Tech Talk.
Oh, really?
Yep. I'm volunteering as a volunteer with them. We do it. We're doing in every second week. We do in a tech talk.
Fantastic. So where are you exactly?
I'm in Cambridge, Ontario.
Excellent. And how do you like doing that? The co-facilitator.
You know what? I really love it. I really enjoy it because being very enthusiastic about technology. It's a great opportunity for me to because I have all the skills of how to do certain things on the iPhone and Mac and et cetera. So, being able to share that knowledge with others is just fantastic. When they ask me a question on how to do something, on how to do a particular task, it's just one of those that I just feel, if I can help them out and say, this is how you do it, I'm happy that they were able to get their problem solved, and at the same time just be happy about that I was able to help them solve it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we experience that all the time. I mean, especially Ryan's always reaching out to people and giving them a hand with different technical issues with their devices or their software. So it does feel really good to be able to step in and give them a hand and get their stuff working the way that it's supposed to.
Yeah, and Ryan, maybe you can comment a little bit on this as well here. That I find that it may take for some users that aren't as comfortable or aren't as familiar with their devices, it might take a few attempts to get them to to help them adjust the setting or to go to this particular menu or that sort of thing.
Yeah, in my years of doing training and tech support, not everybody learns the same way, so you need to be able to adapt your methods and,
I think it's important, in general, for representatives to be aware of it.
Well, the tricky part too, especially with the growing number of operating systems and devices, and the actual software themselves, it can be tricky to get them all to play well together.
Absolutely, definitely, yep. That's always a bit of a factor in that sort of thing.
Excellent. Okay, well, Ryan.
Rob.
What are we doing today?
Today is our monthly news show. So we have a bunch of topics we're going to throw against the wall and see what sticks, and hopefully you enjoy it.
All right, well...
I've got my Braille display connected as well to my Mac, so I'm all ready to go here.
Oh, yes, Mr. Apple.
Yes. Yeah. We've talked about that.
Yeah, we have. We have at length. You know what? And you know what? I'm just noticing, looking at this list, we don't even have any Apple stories.
I know.
We got nothing.
No, we
got nothing this week.
That's okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Dang it.
No, that's fine. Don't worry. No worries.
Okay, first, this was an interesting story. Man sues Microsoft seeking new copy of Windows 7 after forced Windows upgrade.
Now, I thought this would be really appropriate for you, Rob, who's just finished fighting your computer with Windows 10.
this is really, I feel this guy's pain. Absolutely. Although it's a bit ridiculous because this guy's demanding $600 million in damages.
I'd like to know where they get those numbers
or a fresh copy of Windows 7.
Yeah.
So as the story goes, it says, according to a civil complaint filed last week on February 14th, Frank K. Dickman Jr. of Albuquerque, New Mexico, is suing Microsoft because of a botched forced Windows 10 upgrade. I guess he owns an Asus laptop, which has an OEM license for Windows 7. The computer was upgraded to Windows version 10 and became non-functional immediately. So he's suing Microsoft.
For a stupid amount of money.
Well, $600 million. That'll fix a lot of your problems. But I mean, obviously this is not a.
Well, if you read further down, there's also others. Isn't there a class action suit against Microsoft?
Yeah, I think that was behind. That was. Let's see. Oops, that's right. In March, several users filed a lawsuit seeking class action status against Microsoft, also soliciting monetary damages after suffering botched Windows 7 to Windows 10 forced upgrades that left many unable to use their computers.
Now, that did happen to a lot of people. Now, to give Microsoft credit, in the last two updates, the Spring Creators Update and the Fall Creators Update, the rollout has gone much, much smoother than it did with the original version of Windows 10. So I think Microsoft has learned their lessons and smoothed that all out. And I have a feeling this is just going to settle out of court. Microsoft's just, they're not going to spend the time and money to go to court. They're just going to give this guy pretty much what he wants.
Which is a Windows 7 disk.
Windows 7 disk. Yeah.
I mean, really.
Here you go.
You guys make a lot of good points. Sorry, I don't mean to.
Jump right in, Ali.
You guys have made a lot of great comments on, and I like what you have to say on this. But I kind of feel in a way that lawsuits are sort of, in this case especially, are unnecessary because I mean, it's important because the person has to be aware first of all, what are the requirements because if I remember correctly, he was using a Windows 7 machine.
That's right.
And he knew that eventually that this was going to probably happen, right? And that, I think that he should have been aware or take the necessary steps, either if he was able to get a new computer, or just kind of say, well, this is what I'm faced with, and I think I have to take some steps to get it all together, basically.
Well, I think one of the big problems with the rollout of Windows 10 is it was forced upon a lot of people. You'd wake up one morning
That's right,
and your
yep.
computer was running Windows 10, or it was bricked and you couldn't go back. So it was a forced update.
Yeah, I think that's I think where the important part of the lawsuit, I think, is the message that will eventually send to Microsoft, which is the idea of a forced upgrade. I think is a bad one. It's a bad one for users, and it's especially a bad one when you factor in, people who maybe be using some sort of assistive technology, because assistive technology, the software is very fickle.
That's a big one right there.
Right,
That's a big one there in that event.
No, yeah. So somebody who's maybe using something like, say, ZoomText, for example.
Yep.
That particular version of ZoomText may only work on Windows 7 because it was bought for Windows 7. So all of a sudden, the guy comes back to his laptop and he's now running Windows 10, and now his ZoomText is not going to work on that computer. So, in that sense, forced people should have some sort of level of control over whether they want a new version of Windows.
Now, the one thing to
Yeah,
keep...
that I agree with. That I agree, because no, in looking at it from that sense, yeah, not everybody is current with their assistive technology like JAWS and
That's
Zoom
right.
Text. I mean, if you're using NVDA, then you could easily stay current. But with those, of course, a lot of people are using both of those, JAWS and Zoom Text. So
Yeah, and JAWS is a great example of that, because that's definitely assistive technology that is specifically keyed to a specific version of Windows, that if you upgrade your Windows and your JAWS is out of date, the only option that you have is to buy the newest version of JAWS, which could be very expensive.
Oh, sure, yeah. And I just want to throw in a side question, if I may, here.
Go for it.
We found that a lot of people do not stay current with their software maintenance agreements when it comes to JAWS and things like that. I mean, is that partly because either, let's say they are able to renew it, right? Are they not aware in a lot of cases that it's a good idea to take advantage of things that are of fixes? Like I'm talking about, like for home users, for personal uses.
Well, I think, that the Freedom Scientifics have done all they can in their podcasts, at shows that I've
Jonathan
been to.
Mosen mentions it all the time in there. Make sure you stay current.
Yeah, and you pretty much need to nowadays. The big concern is that if you're running Windows 10 Home, you get pushed and forced updates from Microsoft automatically. You have no way of deferring those updates for 30 days, 10 days, like you do with Professional. So if
Can you not turn that off and then turn off automatic updates?
Not in Windows Home, no.
No, and even Windows Pro, I was not able to do it either. So I mean, Windows really Microsoft has really locked down on have really removed a lot of the control that a user has on updates.
The last time I used Windows back in when Windows 7 was more prevalent, like back a few years ago, before I switched to the Mac. And I remember in those days you could turn off automatic updates.
That's
and
right.
Choose when you want to do it. Now you can do that on the Mac too, which is what I've actually done, because I want to be able to do it when I want to do it. Let me decide when to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think, with Windows 10 Professional, you can tell it that you're on a metered connection and download only at this particular time. You can tell it, I think you can schedule it when to restart so it doesn't just reboot on you automatically if an update comes down. But I think the thing to keep in mind is that all of these software developers like VFO, like Dolphin, AI Squared, they all say they work closely with Microsoft to make things more and more accessible.
Yep.
So, in the next, we're going to March now, the next update of Windows 10 is due to be released in March or April. So Freedom Scientific and all these manufacturers are speedily trying to get their software programs beta tested so that when the next rollout comes out, that they're ready to go.
And that seems to be that is also a challenge a little bit as well. And for those guys, unless they're ready, we're also now, I know this is a completely unrelated topic, but I just wanted to kind of throw my comments in on it anyway, if that's okay.
Sure.
The AT, we're seeing a lot of changes now in the AT industry. We're seeing now, of things like VFO now has pretty much acquired a lot of these smaller, companies like AI Squared and things. Is that just a sign that the AT industry, do you think, is just kind of going with the mainstream now of all of these acquisitions and things?
Yeah, I think, it's kind of confusing for a lot of people. And, for myself as well, who has been a JAWS user since JAWS 3.2, Freedom Scientific had their flagship products, JAWS and Magic. the only reason I can see that they bought AI Squared was because they realized their own screen magnification product, Magic, was either inferior to Zoom Text, or it just didn't make sense in their development cycle to keep doing it the way they were doing it. So, now that they've bought AI Squared, they've rolled JAWS into Zoom Text Fusion. They've also changed the scheme you use in Zoom Text for authorization. So it's now ILM. It's not a serial number based activation system. When they bought GW Micro, they got rid of window eyes. It's almost like they're becoming the one-stop shop for everybody in the AT industry. We're seeing Braille display companies, go out of business in the U.S. Bomb, for example.
Yeah, that was a huge one. I just actually finished listening to a podcast on it. Last night, where they had an interview, which and where they talked about what happened and why the U.S. office closed, etc.
Yeah, so I think in VFO's interests, they're buying the best players on the market. They bought AI Squared for the Zoom Text technology. They recently acquired Enhanced Vision Systems because, hands down, in our experience, nobody makes a better CCTV product than Enhanced Vision Systems. And they have the development and R&D behind them. So it made sense for VFO to do this. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens in the next couple of years, because really VFO is becoming a monopoly. And it's not illegal to be a monopoly, but they're going to have a fine line to walk if they just keep buying up competition, because that's what happened to Microsoft.
And the other thing is as well, now there are just they obviously realize now there are so many choices out there. You look at built-in accessibility. You look at Apple that's built their VoiceOver and even their Zoom magnification into their iDevices and Macs. And now you also look at now everybody else kind of followed suit. You see Google now, they've incorporated TalkBack in Android, and Amazon in their Fire tablets and phones. So I think I agree with you that there has to be some kind of a fine line now that VFO is going to have to realize and say, come to the realization that we don't want to make it sound like we're the only one, or we're the main one that you need to pay attention for. And I think and I'm starting to kind of feel that that's what we're seeing in a way, that they're trying to say that, hey, we're the ones that you need to watch out for. We're buying everybody and that sort of thing. What do you guys think? I feel that that's what they're doing right now. It's just acquiring everybody and then saying, hey, just why don't you be our one-stop shop kind of thing? We're your one-stop shop, and you come to us first.
The only advantage I see is that VFO, Freedom Scientific, they've got all the corporate enterprise customers that have bought into their ecosystem, bought into the JAWS software. There's been scripts especially written to work with systems that weren't accessible before. NVDA, because it's open source, a lot of companies in enterprise will not allow open source products in their enterprise systems, in their IT departments. If Microsoft can continue the pace they're going with Narrator and keep building in functionality, I think, in another year or two, it could be a viable alternative for people. And it's free. It's built in.
Yeah. So they're taking the VoiceOver approach with that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, what the landscape looks like. And that, they could be forward thinking, trying to sort of anticipate the day when there's going to be a lot of accessibility functionality built right into operating systems like Android and Windows and and iOS, and they're
and Mac, of course, as well.
Of course, yeah. And so their position as sort of the go-to assistive software may be threatened. So maybe it could be just that they're trying to sort of they're trying to sort of amass like as much under one umbrella as they can in order to sort of have a lot of eggs in one basket.
And certainly, like when I first started with, getting into when I first started getting into technology, which was almost 10 years ago. I mean, no, a little over about 12, because I started with JAWS, of course. That was back in the XP days. I started with JAWS, and then of course I moved into the Mac. Like then I went to Windows 7 after that, and then I got into the Mac because I wanted to, because being someone, I like to play around and see what works, kind of thing, and so then I got into the Mac, and I've been enjoying it ever since.
So I'm going to throw this out there. How did we go from lawsuit to AT companies?
Okay, hold on. I'm spinning it back. I'm spinning it back.
All right.
No worries, Ali.
I apologize.
No, this is how we do it.
No, we just go. So.
Sometimes you get a good conversation out of a side thing. Yeah. So no worries at all.
I just wanted to kind of get your perspectives on. I want to kind of have a conversation about that with you guys. It's something you guys have touched on before, and I wanted to kind of just for conversational sake wanted to put that in there.
The thing about this forced upgrade issue, I mean, I think it is kind of a big deal. I mean, this lawsuit is a little bit ludicrous. I mean, I'm gonna admit, $600 million or a Windows 7 disk. I mean, it's literally a joke. But it does serve to be underlined that there is a class action suit against Microsoft for this reason. A lot of people are upset. It is a really big inconvenience for people who, like I'm a perfect example of this. I've spent 3 weeks fighting with my computer because of the latest big Windows update, the Fall Creators update. My computer kept freezing up during the update process, and it wouldn't take the update, and it would keep it would download the update. It would try to install it, and it would freeze up, and I'd have to hard reboot, and then it would roll back to my previous version of Windows. And it just kept constantly doing this. Like 2 times a day, it would go download the newest update, try to install it, and lock my computer up. So it was making my computer virtually unusable. And I went through huge efforts to try to turn off Windows updates, because I was like, well, you know what? I don't want to deal with this right now. I'm trying to do work. I just want to turn off automatic updates so that I can figure this out later. And I literally couldn't do it. And, I was looking at possibly it was going to brick my computer. There was nothing I could literally do. And eventually I did figure it out that it was an external hard drive that was attached via USB that was locking it up. That's the reason why the update wasn't working. So I sorted it out, but it took 3 weeks, and it took a lot of hassle, and not having that control of being able to choose whether or not I wanted the very latest build of Windows 10 was a real issue for me. And if I hadn't been able to sort it out, I don't know what I would have done. I think I might have just had to buy a new computer. Because my computer's 6 years old. I mean, it says it's compatible with Windows 10, but the day that it's not, like if you were running Windows 7 and your computer, was compatible with Windows 7, but it wasn't for Windows 10, well, that's a problem. Because for somebody that just gets forced into Windows 10.
Especially if it's forced on you.
Exactly. I mean, if it was something like a motherboard incompatibility or something, I would have just been screwed.
And I think this guy's, that's suing Microsoft, Windows 7 is getting security updates, is still supported until 2020. So all Microsoft needs to do is send him a disk, and it should be problem solved.
Sure.
So.
But he shouldn't have to go through that. That's the thing.
No, he shouldn't. Yeah. But, Microsoft's plan is to kind of go to this subscription type service now, right? So they roll out updates twice a year, feature updates. And, they hopefully have learned from their initial problem. But like you say, Rob, that, the day an update comes down and my computer won't start up or is unusable, is the day I'm probably going to have to buy a new computer unless I can blow the hard drive away and go back to an earlier operating system. But what a nightmare.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And it also serves to mention that, in Germany, Microsoft got in big trouble for this as well, because I guess it got flagged as anti-consumer, and they've turned off automatic updates in Germany. So they're definitely getting some pushback for this, and I think it's well deserved, because I don't think it serves their base well at all, and I also don't think it especially affects people who are using assistive technology, and I don't think that, especially with Microsoft and their new push for accessibility, they've been making some great headway in that field. This Windows 10 forced update stuff is not great. All right. Well, I think we've spent enough time on that one.
All right.
I thought that was going to be a 2-minute conversation. It turned out we all had a lot to say about it.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll revisit this and these things in the future, I'm sure.
Well, like I said, the next update of Windows 10 is due to be out in March or April. So.
Oh, God. I hope I have to go through that nightmare again.
Unplug your USB drive.
Yeah, clearly. I'll have to remember that. It's funny, and it was just, I Googled my problem, and it happened. I found on one forum board somebody else who was having the same problem that I was, that mentioned a USB drive. Otherwise, I would have been screwed, because certainly the Microsoft knowledge base didn't help at all.
Right.
Anyways, I'm what do we got next? Hey, did you see this? Blindfold Games. Marty's Blindfold Games, our good buddy over there, building all those game apps.
Games, yeah.
Yeah, he says he's now starting to work on games that have Braille display support.
Yay.
Yeah, I'm curious to talk to him to see how hard that is to actually do, and whether or not he's going to go through his old library and continue to develop for the Braille displays.
I think for the games that, would make sense to have Braille, he'll include Braille. Like, I think he's got a basketball game. So what are you going to display in Braille for a basketball game? Is it all just text, player A dribbles the ball, passes to player B? Like, I've never played his iOS games because I don't have iOS, so I'm really not sure how they all work. But it'll be interesting to see how many he does do.
Yeah, I'm not a player of games in general either, but it is very interesting to see that he's actually going that extra mile and adding the support, especially based on user comments that he's received.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody has the number of games for iOS that Marty's put out.
No.
When we had him on the show, I think he said he can put out a game in 2 to 3 days. And so his turnout time is really, really fast. So, yeah, we may have to try and get him back on the show to talk about the whole Braille development.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be interesting, though, because it's great to see that a developer's going that far to provide the support, and it looks like that he's really done based on a great job for the blind community in terms of the development, especially because of the outpour that came in with that when he had that little exchange with Apple.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Right, when he had that outpour and that. How they were willing, and then they said, okay, then they lifted it and said, okay, we're changing our minds about that.
Yeah.
So that just goes to show that the support and the backing that he had, and has, I should say, from the community and the people.
That's right.
Not only the blind, but in general, the community in general.
Yeah, he does have a very good relationship with that community, and like I agree. I think that really helped in his head, I'm sure, cement that relationship with the community after he got all that support. And really, it was the community that made Apple sort of back off that. Because I'm sure if no one had complained and no one had sent any feedback to Apple, they would have just said, no, look, you're going to have to bundle all these games together.
Right.
So good for him.
And the other thing I added to these notes here, the developer is willing to listen to his customers,
Mm-hmm.
and will be adding Braille support to more of his games.
Yeah, it's exciting times. I think if you're in the iOS ecosystem and you want some fully accessible games that have, Braille output, think of somebody that might be deafblind. They're not using VoiceOver. VoiceOver might be driving the Braille display, but they now have some games that they could play using their Braille display.
Yeah, you know what, Ryan? We should reach out to him because I think we should have him on again because it would be interesting to hear sort of the inside story about all that Apple story.
That would have to
I feel it'd be really great. Yeah, see if you can.
Yeah,
you guys can look at getting him on again.
Yeah, we will.
Okie dokie.
Oh, let's see what else. Oh, yeah, this was an interesting blog post, and something that I didn't realize. Ryan,
What?
did you know that it is illegal to have an inaccessible website in Norway?
I read that. Good on Norway.
Yeah, I thought this, especially it is interesting after last week's show where we talked to David McDonald from the the web accessibility.
That was a great interview, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I thoroughly enjoyed that. I listened to it on Friday there, and it was excellent.
Yeah, it was a fascinating interview.
Yeah.
You don't really realize how
What
deep,
goes into.
yeah, and how deep it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you guys? You guys have had him on before, right?
No.
No, that was the first one. No.
I think that's very interesting, though, that that there's a law in place to prevent, to make websites more accessible, to make websites accessible.
Yeah, well,
it's illegal to not have them accessible. But
yeah, that's right. I mean, principally, it's all websites, whether they're the public sector or the private sector that were designed after 2014, they have to follow the WCAG guidelines in Norway. So, what that means and what that sort of spun into is that not only is it legislated and any company that doesn't adhere to that is fined, but it also results in a lot of bad publicity in that country.
Sure, and that was actually the direction I was going to go. I want to kind of get. Do you guys really think that, do you guys feel that it kind of should be important? Like, if you look at it from a web designer's point of view, do you think it should be forced on people? I don't know if I'd say that it should be forced on people. Especially trying to understand the technicality of it, because some websites are there's a cost to redesign it, and if it's already designed one way.
Well, I'm gonna throw this at Rob because Rob has done some web design in the past, and as somebody who has worked with HTML code, really, how much more difficult or how much more time intensive is it to add an accessible tag to text or to a graphic?
That kind of stuff it's nothing. It's nothing to alt tag your pictures. It's nothing to create your code in terms of building your page with headers and all that stuff that David talked about last week. That's not hard at all. I mean, the place where it gets tricky is actually not in so much in the front end web design that I dealt with, but it's in the web development stuff. It's in the really fancy stuff, right? That's where you get the really visually intricate interfaces that look great, and fly out menus and all that kind of stuff. It all looks great, but that needs to be programmed in. That accessibility needs to be programmed in,
right,
at a level that not all web developers bother with,
or maybe even know how to do.
Because sometimes, because you have to make sure, because the developer has to make sure that the links are clickable, that you can press enter on them or control option space, etc. On them, because sometimes you go to some websites, and if you press enter on a link or you press on the Mac side of you can press enter on the Mac too, and control option space, sometimes the particular links won't activate.
Yep.
So I think I feel that that's something that developers need to be aware of, and need to try to fix. Now, of course, there are ways around, in order, if you need to get access at a link, you can, you can route your mouse over there. Like in the case of the Mac, you could just do a Control-Option-Command F5, which will put your mouse pointer there, and then you can just do like a mouse click of VO-Shift-Space, and that should generally activate the link. And of course, you can use your JAWS cursor and stuff as well. That's another way. So there are ways around it, but I think that it comes back to what we were saying earlier, that if people not in our intro there, if people not of some maybe not, that aren't as comfortable with the technology, to be able to access a page that they need to access or really need access to.
Well, that's exactly it. And, even in this blog post, they they say that, according to Norwegian statistics, 15 to 20% of their population has some sort of a disability. And that number is only going to go up as the population ages. So, and more of our life is reliant on digital, on websites and online banking and online, everything's moving into an online capacity where it's very important for components like that to be accessible. People rely on it from their day-to-day lives. So, and I think that the interesting thing about this Norwegian model is that I think it solves a lot of problems. I think it makes a lot of sense to just be legislated. And have an agency that specifically looks into it, and if somebody doesn't comply, they get a fine.
Well, and there are websites and there are standards. There's Bobby approved, which you can run your website through for accessible testing, and it'll tell you where you need improvement on. There's the W3C World Wide Web Consortium guidelines. These aren't new. These have been around for years.
Well, sure.
And so, going forward, there's no reason why a website should be inaccessible to anybody, despite your disability.
Well, sure. But I mean, the long and the short of it is that if, there have to be consequences.
Yep.
And I think Norway doesn't because, it was just last week where we had a bit of a discussion about litigation.
Yep.
and how, these frivolous lawsuits. And that's, we talked about how in the States they've taken out some, or they've sort of weakened their Disability Act a little bit.
Rob, I'm going to throw this out. Go ahead, Ryan. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, one of our previous guests actually took the Canadian government to court and, got them to redesign their websites, make them accessible.
The long and the short of it, Norway, I don't know. I think that's the solution to the problem. I think that this is what needs to happen in other countries. If the idea of litigation and clogging the courts up with frivolous lawsuits, like the one we talked about at the top of the show, this is how you prevent that. You just legislate it, have a body that polices it and just issues out fines for anyone who's not compliant. Seems easy peasy.
Well, and as we're coming to learn, accessibility favors everybody, not just people with disabilities.
Well, that's exactly it. You're putting captions on videos. Well, that helps me because, I can sit on the train and I can watch a video and I don't have to have the sound on.
Right.
Good readability. There's all kinds of benefits for everybody the more accessible any given website is. And, the sooner that developers learn that, the better. But
go Norway.
Yeah, I should just move to Norway.
It's probably cold in the winter.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I know nothing about Norway other than it's really. Isn't that that's where all the reindeer is? I have reindeer farms and stuff in Norway, right?
Sweden's got a bunch too.
Is Sweden? Wait. Wow, I know nothing about the Norwegian countries. I just realized Sweden's like, okay. I don't know.
Sweden's up near the Arctic Circle. Linda's actually been up there. She has family over there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And where's Norway then? Is it farther south?
I don't know.
Yeah, see, you don't know either.
Ask Google.
No, let's not ask Google. What else? What else do we got here? What's our time like? We are talking up a storm today, Ali.
Woohoo!
Yeah. Thank you. No, I appreciate you guys having me on today.
Oh, hey, no problem. Do we want to talk about this? Okay, yeah, let's go right to the neuro. Okay, let's talk about the neuro node.
Let me just find it in my notes.
Say that 3 times fast.
The neuro node. No, I'm not going to do that.
Neuro node, no. Neuro node, no. What is the neuro node?
The neuro node is, now I got to say this word, electromyography.
Good job.
Thank you. Which is more commonly known as an EMG. And it's a measurement of electrical activity associated with the activation of a muscle group as detected by non-invasive electrodes on the surface of the skin. So what the neuronode is essentially is just, it's a switch. It's like a physical access switch, except it's controlled. You'd put it somewhere on the body, and it would be able to measure the muscle movement on that particular part of the body, which would then activate the switch, which would allow somebody with, say, Parkinson's or any other limited mobility to do things like operate a smartphone or a tablet or a computer. So it's essentially sort of another way of a physical access control unit.
So
It's very.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
So I was just going to ask Rob if it explains in the description of the product actually how it works. So it's a sensor on the skin that activates a switch, or
Yeah, well, it's so the electrodes would go on to, say, I don't know, part of your. I'm not exactly sure. We haven't actually seen the unit on somebody, so I'm just assuming. But whatever muscle you want to be, you want the switch to be. So I guess it could be like your fingers, or your hand. The unit can sense when you're using the muscle. When that muscle is moved, it detects the bioelectrical signal and then sends that signal to the switch,
which then performs the action you're trying to do.
Right.
Okay.
So, and I mean, I should mention too that, sorry, I'm not actually describing that right, is that you don't even need to move the muscle. You just need to think about moving the muscle.
Right.
And it senses the bioelectric energy, which activates the switch. So people with limited mobility that can't necessarily move their finger, if they're thinking about moving their finger, it senses it and then sends that signal to the switch.
Right.
Interesting, because especially for people that are not able to move their muscles or move their fingers properly, it makes a lot of sense to have that somebody's working on this, is developing this sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it'd be perfect
this type of technology, I should say.
Yeah, it would be perfect for people like, say, CP or LAS.
ALS.
Did you know what I said?
He said LAS.
LAS.
I was going to say, what's
ALS. Oh, God.
Cold medication.
I know. I'm going to blame the cold medication on that one. Yeah, no. So it's pricey technology. It's a unit. It's made by Control Bionics, and the unit itself has a price tag of about $13,000. I'm assuming that's US. So it's not cheap. It's pretty cutting edge, though. And I mean, the nice thing about it is that it's non-invasive too. I mean, it.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, this is kind of like next gen switches. I mean, I don't know how many years before this becomes a little bit more commonplace and cheaper.
Yeah, because we've done shows on robotics before and cybernetics to some degree, where people have had a chip implanted under their skin, which is be able to detect impulses and allow them to move their hand or grab a cup or whatever. This I think gives you some of the same functionality, but like you say, it's on the surface of the skin, and still allows you to have that, freedom of motion.
That's right, and the unit also, it works with the Apple Switch control, for example, or the Google Switch Access software that's built into like Android devices and obviously into Apple devices. So, it sounds pretty cool. It's it'd be fascinating to actually hear from somebody who's tried it out and see how well it works.
Well, we'll have to see if there's any YouTube videos or documentaries out there online, and maybe at some point see if we can get somebody on the show to talk about it.
Yeah, or even talk to the manufacturer. It might be interesting to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we've done shows on brain-computer interfaces and all that sort of stuff. So it's interesting. A lot of the same switch access stuff that we've seen in our past experiences. On-screen keyboards. Giving them access to email, the World Wide Web, like you said, the phones, iOS, Android.
Right.
You can probably include switch access in some home automation stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So somebody who has $13,000 to blow, by all means, buy one and let us come on the show.
Very interesting for sure.
Okay, last story.
Bum-ba-da-bum.
Hey, Google Assistant is going to gain multilingual support, more languages, and deeper device integrations, Ryan.
Yay. So you'll be able to speak Spanish to your Google Home.
No, you won't.
Oh, okay.
I think what they're starting out with is English, French, and German.
Ah, right. Well, you got to start somewhere.
No, but they are rolling out, they confirm by year's end, the Google Home will be available in more than 30 languages.
Wow.
That's very, it's very fascinating to me. The Google Home is, I'm very fascinated by it because it can do so many things. Whether you have a mini or whether you have the regular or the Max, etc. So.
Yeah, I actually posted something probably a month or so ago now on, I think there was an article that the Google Home has the ability to perform a million different things.
On the blog? Did you post it? Where did you post it? On the blog?
I don't remember if I just posted it on Twitter or what I did with it, because it's been a while now.
On the AT Banter podcast, on the AT_Banter Twitter feed, or?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So if the Google Home can do like a million things, that's the one thing I like about the Google Home is if you can think of something to ask it, chances are it'll probably come back with an answer. With the Amazon Echo, it's all based on skills. So as developers release more and more skills, you get more and more functionality built into the Echo.
And the Google Home is also more simpler to set up and stuff as well.
I didn't find either one to be easier than the other. I got the Amazon
I
Echo.
should say more straightforward.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of, one company does it one way and the other does it its own way. I had the Amazon Echo Dot first, and, it was my first entry into voice assistants. And, I used it to listen to music from Spotify, and I would ask it some questions, but, and it was okay. I installed or enabled some different skills to kind of play with it. But my problem with the Amazon Echo is that there are so many skills to choose from that you start enabling 3, 4, 5 or more skills. They all have their own ways that you have to speak to get that skill to respond to you.
Yeah.
Whereas the Google Home is a more natural language. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, well, the other thing that's interesting about some of these firmware updates is that they're also working closely with some of the manufacturers, so that they're going to be making specific commands that for specific devices, which I thought was kind of interesting too.
It is getting interesting though, because I've also heard rumors lately that Spotify is talking about developing their own smart speaker. Facebook is talking about developing their own smart speaker with a 13-inch screen built in.
Yes, yeah, I heard about that.
It's like,
well,
why?
Smart devices are going to be the newest thing.
Very interesting. There's a lot of, I think we're living in interesting times now.
And the only other thing that this press release says is that in the short term, Google has announced that routines and location-based reminders are coming soon. And routines, do you know about routines, Ryan?
I think it's probably like an if this then that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you can sort of chain commands
Right.
together and sort of bundle them. So you could say, hey Google, I'm home, and then it would automatically do like turn on the lights, turn on the thermostat, turn on.
Well, you could even have, if you had the right sensors and stuff, if you had the right sensors in your home, you could already have it set up so that when your motion sensor at your front door detects that you're home, the lights go on, the alarm goes off, the thermostat gets turned up, the blinds get drawn, all that stuff gets done automatically. And that's really cool.
Yes, it is. So, it's nice to see, I love the fact that they're continuing to develop and improve the devices. I mean, it's exciting.
Yeah, I'm going to just now, Rob. You brought up the privacy thing, so I'm going to just throw this out here as well. And if we have some time here, you can comment. You guys can comment on it. Do you guys think that the devices like the Google Home and Amazon Echo that there are privacy concerns with them? Because I think. Were you going to say something?
No, go ahead.
Because for me, like I would feel that I wonder how easily are they hacked, right? Because these devices are cool in many ways, but they're kind of a cause in a sense for concern in a way too, because of who knows what's being transmitted and what are they picking up and that sort of thing.
I have a Google Home and I have an Amazon Echo here in the Guitar Dungeon.
Yep.
And I've got two thoughts on this. A, for years now, people have saying have a strong password. The only way these things can get hacked is if somebody's already on your network. If they're in your network, your smart TV could be hacked, your stove could be hacked, your thermostat could be hacked. You're screwed either way. It's got nothing to do with the digital assistants. The other side of that coin is if you believe in privacy nowadays, you need to give your head a shake, because I don't believe there's such thing as privacy anymore. We're being watched and monitored everywhere we go.
No, exactly. Especially now in the online world, right? Especially in the online world, I don't really think that it should be something that people should really concern themselves with. As long as they're aware of their online activities and whatnot, then you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Ali. I haven't really given much thought to I have a Google Home now, thanks to Ryan. And I haven't given
do you have the Mini or the Max?
Just the normal, the normal Home. Yeah. No, not the Mini. There's the Mini, the Home,
there was the
and
original,
the Max.
the original Google Home I had, and I gave to Rob, sold to Rob, and I bought a Google Home Mini.
But I mean, I don't really give it much thought. Privacy and that doesn't concern me. I don't really care if what I'm asking my Google Home to do gets sent to a server somewhere. I'm kind of with Ryan. I mean, so much of our information mining is so prevalent these days. It's the new currency in terms of marketing currency.
Yep.
So
I totally agree. I totally agree with you guys on that. But I just because you hear that often too. That how easily are they hacked and that sort of thing. Right. So I want to get your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, I don't. Like I said, if they're in your network, they're already in your network, and they're going to turn your temperature up or down, and they're going to change the time on your smart TV, and you're hosed. But
yeah, I think as more as home automation becomes more common, I think that you're going to find that the security measures behind that also get amped up. I don't think right now it's a concern, because I don't think anybody's really. I've never heard of a report of anybody's home automation system being hacked.
There's people that have hacked into baby monitors, though.
Has there?
So yeah, so there has been some security, but usually the result is because people just left on the generic password. They never went in and changed the passwords. So if you know the password's password or 1234, it's really easy to hack into a system.
Sure. But I mean, I remember hearing the same arguments back when broadband first became a thing. You know, when we were the world of, you know, going from a dial-up modem to being connected to the internet all the time, there was the same kind of thing. It was like, oh, geez, people are going to be able to hack you really easily if you're connected to the internet all the time. And you know, what happened was, you know, just security measures got strengthened. We had bigger and better antiviruses, and Windows built in a built-in firewall. And so, you know, I think the industry will respond if security becomes an issue. All right. Well, whew, what an epic news show. We talked up a storm.
Excellent.
Hey, Ali, thanks so much for helping us out today and stepping in and filling in for Steve.
Oh, no problem. You know, I would be happy to do it again.
Well, we will certainly take you up on that, sir.
Well, absolutely. Anytime you just let me know, and I'd be happy to do it.
Okay.
Again. I would enjoy doing it again. We had a lot of topics, a lot of ground that we covered.
We did.
I felt we all covered. We all had some great opinions, I felt.
Absolutely. Hey, Ryan.
Rob.
Where can people find us?
They can find us online at www.atbanter.com.
They can also email us if they so desire. atbanterpodcast@gmail.com. I almost screwed it up.
That's right.
They can also find us on Facebook, and they can find us on Twitter, and they can find us on Instagram. And for those people who are looking for Steve Barclay and his company, Canadian Assistive Technology, you can find him at www.canasstech.com. And they can also find Mr. Rick Chant at Chaos Technical Services for all your assistive technology servicing needs at www.chaostechnicalservices.com. So, Ryan?
Yes, sir.
I think we're done.
We're done. All right. Let's go.
It's another show in the bag.
Yay.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. We will see you all next week.
This podcast has been brought to you by Canadian Assistive Technology, providing low vision and blindness solutions across Canada. Find us online at www.canasstech.com. That's CANASSTECH.com. Or call us toll free at 1-844-795-8324. For all your assistive technology servicing needs, call Chaos Technical Services at 778-847-6840 or find them online at chaostechnicalservices.com. Music provided by bensound.com.